Hello. Welcome along to episode 178, I do believe, of Adventures in Pop. My name is Simon Jacobs, and we're looking very summery. Well, that's if you're in the northern hemisphere, that is. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're looking very wintry. I guess that's about right, isn't it? Today, I want to talk about two pop stars, one British and one American. And they actually have nothing in common with each other. These are two separate stories, actually. I was trying to work out if there was any connection between the two of them, and frankly, there isn't. So I'm not going to try and force some kind of incredible newfound connection between two pop stars, and I am talking about Will Young, British, as you well know, and it's Taylor again. I'm talking about Taylor. We've got to talk about Taylor Swift because it's really interesting to talk about, I suppose, what it is, the intersection of pop music and politics in the United States. Because things are going on there that are impossible to ignore. And it's worth just, because we like pop music and we're interested in pop stars, talk about the potential power that comes from a pop star that just happens to be around at the moment, who just happens to be the most iconic and influential person probably on the whole planet. Should we start with Will Young, though? We have to build up, I think, to Taylor Swift. Otherwise, it could be a bit anticlimactic. But the other day, a friend of mine invited me to join him in Kingston upon Thames, which is a town a few miles outside London, southwest of London, to see Will Young, who's basically doing a kind of a showcase rather than, it wasn't a full-on gig, it was a showcase. It was him and a keyboard player showcasing some tracks from his brand new album, which just came out on Friday, 9th of August. And this was a showcase to be able to highlight some of those tracks and play one or two of his older songs. And also, it was an opportunity for him to take questions from the audience and kind of demonstrate one of the things that makes Will Young so lovable, I think, which is his really very funny banter with the audience. And I think he's developed it to such an extent that, I was looking forward to him answering more questions. Whereas sometimes, you get a pop star who wants to interact with the audience and it's kind of painful. None of that with our Will. So let's just talk about Will Young for a moment or two. He on Friday released what I do believe is his 9th album. It's called Light It Up. And it's had very good reviews. It's a good album. I would say, personally speaking, that I think his voice is as good as it ever was, possibly better, because I think he's just becoming such a kind of, relaxed and experienced singer of, nice pop music. And really this album and the little show we saw on Friday is the sound of somebody who's reached that point in their career where they don't really care, I think, much about what people are going to make of it. He's doing what he wants to do. He's making the music he wants to make. He's obviously working with the people he wants to work with. There's not much pressure, I don't think, on him from, say, his record company to produce a, million-selling album or any of those kind of things. He's done all that. I kind of feel like he's reached the point with, 9 albums in where he doesn't have much left to prove to anybody. And that's really very charming. And it just makes him very relaxed, very amusing. And I've seen him a few times, actually with this same friend who tends to, invite me to go and see Will Young. And I think the first time I went to see Will Young with him, I was thinking, oh, okay, all right, let's do it. And I was really knocked out by how good he was. And so I'm very happy. Whenever Will Young is in town, I'm very happy to go and see him. And he puts on a very good show. One of the things he does, and he does this over and over, is he's very good at kind of popping his own pop star bubble. He refuses to take himself too seriously as a pop star. he sees the funny side, I think, he sees the ridiculousness sometimes of that whole pop star thing. And it's greatly to his credit. The songs are nice. I think his voice, as I say, just gets better and better. And it's a pleasure to, spend an hour in his company, singing and chatting with an audience. And as you can see from these pictures, it's quite a small venue, and I was quite close with my mate, and it felt intimate and fun. And he got questions from the audience like, "Can I be your best friend?" And he would just say, "Is so and so here? Who asked that question?" And somebody put their hand up, and he'd go, "No." And it was rather funny, a bit rude. My friend said he seems to be getting ruder and ruder, and I wondered whether perhaps he was turning into, Lily Savage, who was a very famous, vicious drag act back in the day. But anyway, very pleasurable. Check him out if you can, and take a listen to the Will Young album, Light It Up. As I say, album number 9, not bad. And just bear in mind, maybe the one thing he does have in common with Taylor Swift is he's been going for a long time. His breakthrough moment of winning Pop Idol back in the day, I think, was 2001. Here we are in 2024, and he's still going, and he could still pack, okay, admittedly a smallish kind of venue, but it was really packed. And he's doing a tour, and things are going, I think, rather swimmingly for Will, so I'm pleased for him. Let's move on to the behemoth that is Taylor Swift. The reason this has come up recently is because there's been a huge amount of fuss and excitement about the possibility that Taylor Swift might get involved in some way in the American presidential election. And it's been described as the single most important endorsement that the Democrat Party could possibly get. If there's one individual in the whole world that they would really love to have, come out and say, vote for these guys, it's Taylor Swift. And there's a reasonable chance that exactly that will happen. Why do I say that? Okay, last year, I think it was the American midterms, she told her fans to vote. That's all she did. She didn't say who to vote for. She just kept it very kind of apolitical, and just said, you need to register and you need to get out there and vote, guys. That was it. And the result of that was quite astonishing. Tens of thousands of people were suddenly taking themselves to register to vote immediately. It was the biggest daily spike, I think, in young people registering that had ever been seen. And it was tens of thousands of people across the United States. Now, we know that the Republicans hated this because, without having to say who to vote for, we're talking about, Taylor is talking to a young demographic, a profile of people who are much more likely to be Democrat voters than Republican voters. But she didn't have to say any of that. She just said, register and get out and vote. And if she did that last year for the midterms, you wonder, there's a pretty good chance she might find a way of doing it sometime between now and November in America. So if Taylor Swift was to publicly endorse Kamala Harris and the Democrats, it would have a massive impact because of her really large and very engaged, very committed following. So, it's not just a question of having a big fan base. It's about having a fan base that love her and really love her. And if you break it down, let's look at this. Here's why it could be so impactful. And this really is about unpacking a little bit the power of a pop star. This is somebody who writes songs and sings them. And yet, So she has a massive influence on young voters. She's got a huge fan base, particularly young people, particularly in the age group of kind of 18 to 28, 29. And that is an age group that tends to not vote in the kind of numbers that older people do. So if she can mobilise that age group, the 20-year-olds basically, that's extraordinary, and not many people can get to that group, and not many people can get them up off their asses to go and vote. So that really would energise and motivate a big young turnout who would probably be largely Democrat. She's also got a massive reach and following on social media. Tens of millions of people following her across Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc. So any kind of endorsement she gives would immediately, within seconds, it would reach this huge audience, and that could change the political discourse. It increases awareness about the key issues that either party, but of course it would be the Democrats, are talking about and championing. So that's kind of a second thing. One is young voters. Second is just the sheer huge scale of her social media reach. Then third kind of impact is about a cultural impact, because her endorsement does shape public perception. And so quite often, she'll say something, but then it gets picked up by traditional media, by mainstream media, and it gets discussed and dissected. So her opinions end up being repeated and kind of resonating way beyond her fan base, and actually, filters into broader cultural conversations. I mean, in a way, I'm having this conversation with you because that is the case. That is true. I'm not particularly a fan of Taylor Swift. I mean, let's be really clear about this. I'm not particularly a fan of Taylor Swift's music, but I think this is really interesting, and I would be delighted if she goes ahead and does what I think she will do and endorse the Democrat ticket. If you don't mind me just saying that very quickly as we quickly move on. And then, last thing is, in particular, she is a very strong advocate for gender issues, LGBTQ plus issues and rights. She's very comfortable talking about the big abortion stuff that's going on in America. So we're talking about her ability to really hone in on some specific groups in America who could be very easily mobilized by one carefully written Taylor Swift message on any of her social media platforms. So, she would get the LGBTQ plus vote, the women's vote, the young vote. That's not bad. And she could get it all pointing in one direction, and that would be really significant. Up against this, as you can imagine, many on the right in America are very much hoping and praying that she just shuts up. And I guess what you'll hear people say is, she's a pop star. She's got no right to, mix politics with pop. And this is where this really interesting kind of intersection comes. If she's a pop star, okay? As I said before, she writes some songs and then she sings them. So there is that view that she shouldn't mix politics with her pop music. I don't know why she shouldn't. If she's got a platform and she's got an opinion, why? I would do the same. So she's got every right, I think, to say whatever she wants, and people can agree or disagree with her. So I don't think she shows any sign of feeling like she should shut up. I think if she wants to say something, then she can, and she certainly will. So, as I said before, the single most important endorsement that the Democrats could possibly get between now and November happens to be a young woman who happens to be a pop star. And that's why it's worth just mentioning that. That is the power of pop. We've talked about the power of pop music before, but that is a very strong and, clear, tangible example of where pop music plays a part in the wider social discourse in the country, or in other countries as well. So good on you, Taylor. Thank you very much indeed. I don't have to listen to all your music to think that you're a thoroughly good person. So keep going. That leaves me just to say a couple of things. One is, if you haven't yet heard my brand new single, which came out on Friday the 9th, same date as Will Young actually, it's called You Do You. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify. I do think you really should listen to it, because you might get asked, and if you don't really know, you're just going to look a bit pants. So go and have a listen, and it's nice, and there'll be more coming along soon. And if you like it, there's plenty of other stuff in the back catalogue of other tracks and other albums. So, just indulge yourself. It's the summer holidays. You might have a bit of time in your hands. Go and have a wallow in the back catalogue. But You Do You is the new single, and there's more coming very shortly. So don't go away. Well, you can go now, but don't go too far away. And take care of yourself. Talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.